Hey guys, my name is Heather and welcome back to my channel. Alright, so today I am going to be going through the 9 books I read in April. Alright, so the first book I read, I was rereading the ACOTAR series with my husband. He had never read it before. This is a reread for me. So when April started, we were on A Court of Frost and Starlight. So I read this. I had only read this one time previously. The first time I read this, I did not like it. It was boring. I mean, I think it's not supposed to be, like, there's not supposed to be a lot going on, but when I first read the series, the first 3 books, it was like right after they had first come out. I don't know when that was, 2016, 2017 or something like that. And when ACOWAR finished, I was happy. I was like content with the ending. And so when SJM came out with the novella, and then there was rumors about her coming out with more books, I just wasn't really excited about it because, like I said, I thought the series had finished. I was like happy with it. I don't know. So when I went into this book the first time around, I wasn't too excited. And I think that showed, and that's why I was kind of bored. This time around, knowing what comes next, I liked it a lot more. I didn't give it a rating just because it was a reread, but I liked this a lot more. I understood a lot more what was going on, obviously, because I had all the backstory from A Court of Silver Flames and stuff, so I enjoyed it a lot more. My husband liked it. He didn't have the same issues that I had with it the first time around, so he enjoyed this book. So anyways, the next one on my list, or the next one that I read, was Mile High by Liz Tom Ford. This one was about Stevie and Xander. Xander is a hockey player based in Chicago, and Stevie was a flight attendant on the plane, like the private plane for the team, for the hockey team. And so they met from that, and Xander had a reputation of, you know, the playboy, not caring. He's the bad boy. He likes to get in fights on the ice, and you know, Stevie, he hit on Stevie like immediately, and she was just like, dude, stay away. Slowly but surely, Stevie learns that Xander, that's a show. He's really actually a softie and a really good guy, and they start to fall in love. So this was a 4-star, and the reason why it wasn't a 5-star was for 2 reasons. The first reason is that in the beginning of the book, there was a ton of info dumping, and it felt like it was like a sequel, like, you know, the second or third book in a series, and I knew that it was the first book in the series, so I was really confused about that. I felt like that kind of took me out of the story a little bit and really confused me. So anyways, that was a minor issue. And then the second issue was the 3rd act breakup. I think it went on a little bit too long, and I think, like, after both characters like kind of learned their lessons and, you know, realized the mistakes that they made and were ready to like get back together, they didn't get back together for like longer than I felt was necessary. So anyways, it was still a really, really good book. I still highly recommend it. Anyways, next, moving along. The next book I read was Beauty and the Baller by Ilsa Madden Mills. This one is about Ronan and Nova. Ronan is he was a pro football player. He got into a car accident with his fiance, and she passed away from the car accident. This is not on page, this is just referred to. And then he got really injured, so he was no longer able to play pro football. But at like the end of the season, football gala party, whatever, he meets Nova, and they have like a one night stand. So fast forward, I think 2 years, Nova's mom passes away, and so she ends up having to go back home to her hometown where her sister is still in high school, and she has to take care of her sister. And she finds out that Ronan is the football coach for the high school football team where she went to high school. And so they end up running into each other again. They end up striking up a deal to fake date because Nova's ex-boyfriend, who were high school sweethearts, they moved away to college together. She found him cheating on her with someone from their hometown, and when she moves back to town, her ex works at the high school as a teacher. You know, she's being kind of thrust back into like seeing him and into those memories, and so it's hurtful. And so at the same time, the town is trying to keep Ronan as, like, they want to keep him in town so that he'll continue working as the football coach because he's doing really well and the kids really like him. And so they keep trying to set him up with women in the town, and women are like throwing themselves at him. All these people are trying to set him up, and he's tired of it. He's not interested in that. He wants to grow his career. They come up with a deal that they're gonna fake date. Anyways, I really enjoyed this one, and I gave this 4 stars. So the next one I read was A Lady for a Duke by Alexis Hall. And so this one is about Viola and Justin. Justin is a Duke, and Viola is a trans woman who in her old life was best friends with Justin, and they went off to war together, and Viola was presumed dead, and she was actually taken in by a couple who helped her heal. And so when she came back to her family, she told them that her name was Viola, and that's, you know, who she was. Viola's sister-in-law is like a mentor for Justin's younger sister, and so they go and visit Justin, and Justin meets Viola, and he's so torn up from his friend's death, and I think it's been like 2 years since the war, and so he's torn up about his friend's death, and he's also injured from the war, and he's self-medicating through drugs and alcohol, and he's not pleasant to be around. Viola sees this and is heartbroken because this is not her best friend. This is not the man she knew. And so she is also torn because if she gets too close to him, she thinks he's going to realize who she is. She's worried that Justin will figure out who she is, and she's living with the guilt that she's allowed him to believe that she's dead. And so Justin ends up really connecting with Viola and feeling this rapport with her, that this chemistry, that he's already knows her, and they hit it off immediately. And so he is, falls fast and wants to be with her. And of course, with all the things I've just said, Viola pushes him away. And they figure out how to have a relationship, and I thought it was a really sweet story. I really liked the representation in this book. The writing was amazing. I really enjoyed the characters. I gave this one 4 stars. So moving on, the next one I read was Hail Mary by Candy Steiner. So this is the 4th book in the Red Zone Rivals series. I loved this book. This book was really good. I really enjoyed Mary's character. She's awesome. She's a tattoo artist, or she's an apprentice. She's trying to be a tattoo artist. And Leo is one of the football players. He is kind of like a player, or looked at like a player and a hot shot. And so Leo and Mary actually meet when they're in high school, but it is through Xbox. They hit it off and they start playing together, and then as they play together, then they start getting to know each other, and then they give each other their phone numbers, and they start texting and calling each other every night. We've talked about how she likes to draw and that she wants to be a tattoo artist, and so he says, hey, draw something for me. And so she's, working on it, and she finally works up the courage and goes up to him after football practice. He's got a couple of friends around him, and she says, I have to show you something, and hands him the sketchbook. And so he's like looking at the sketchbook, and she's drawn things on there that are things that are specific to her and him through their gaming. And so she's like, he's got to know that this is me. And his friends start laughing because it's a picture of them kind of like intimately holding each other. And so he kind of like brushes her off and like just leaves with his friends. And so she's, of course, extremely hurt and thinks that he's rejected her. His friends make her life a living hell for the rest of senior year. Fast forward 7 years, he's at college and she's doing the apprenticeship at the tattoo shop, and she moves in across the street from him. The house she's renting is not livable, and she has nowhere to go. And so Leo, offers for her to move into their house. So she begrudgingly takes him up on his offer, and so it's like a forced proximity thing. Anyways, Mary hates Leo because of everything that happened in their past. So Leo doesn't know why Mary hates him, and so he tries to get her to warm up to him, and eventually he wears her down, and they start to fall for each other. And so it's really sweet. I really liked it. I thought Mary was a really strong character, and I loved how independent she is and how she doesn't need a man to fight her battles. And Leo was just like such a sweetheart and really did a lot of really sweet things for Mary to try and show her that he's not a bad guy, and that to try and get her to like him. So anyways, the next one I read was The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. This one is about Rowan and Zara. And Rowan is a billionaire. He's got 2 other brothers. His grandfather passes away, and so him and his brothers inherit his assets, and the grandfather had set up parameters for each of them before they could inherit their portion. And so for Rowan, he has to be the CEO of the theme park that his grandfather owned, called Dreamland. This is kind of like Disney, and it's set in Orlando, Florida. So he has to be the director of Dreamland for 6 months, and he has to try and make it better. And so through this, he meets Zara because Zara is an employee at Dreamland. So they have the theme park has been doing this where they allow for a period of time. Every year they allow submissions for ideas for new rides and stuff for the park. And so she had a submission, and so she gets chosen to be one of the creators. And so Rowan is working closely with the creators to because he wants to better the park. So Zara gets chosen because the submission she puts in is negative. She's basically berating one of the rides, and so they choose her because she was so honest and she had some good ideas. She had some good points about what could be fixed about it and whatnot. And so they chose her, and so she doesn't put up with Rowan is very stoic and he doesn't show very much emotion. And so he just expects everyone to do what he wants. And so when he comes at Zara, she stands up to him and doesn't let him walk all over her. And so anyways, that intrigues him because everyone always does what he says, and he hasn't, had anyone talk back to him or stand up to him. And so they end up, spending a lot of time together and falling in love. So I liked this one. I rated this a 3.5. This one, there was a few things that bothered me. I felt like more time should have been spent on the character development. Rowan has a lot of really negative self-talk, and I don't really feel like that was fully addressed and fully worked through. Like, he does start to come around at the end, but he's not like seeing a counselor or anything like that. Not that he has to, but I just mean like he's not really getting any help. It just kind of gets a little bit better, but there's no like active like working through it. And so I felt like there was a lot of potential for that to have been something that could have been incorporated in this to really help develop his character. And so I felt like that was missing. I also felt like, I don't know if this is something that is going to, like, so this is book 1, so I don't know if this is something that's going to continue. I feel like it might be something that continues in book 2 and possibly book 3, and that is the plotline with their dad. Like, it was just really weird. It was like kind of thrown in there, but like nothing, it was kind of like a mystery and it wasn't solved. And so I don't know, that's why I'm saying I'm guessing that maybe that like plotline kind of moves through the next book or 2. So hopefully, because if not, that was really weird, because I just don't feel like that was resolved or like fleshed out completely. So, because his dad was the reason for like all of the negative self-talk that Rowan had. It was because of the way that his dad treated him, and so it was just very odd that, again, like, they didn't have any kind of like talk or anything. They didn't work through that together. Rowan wasn't working through it on his own. And so anyways, I also just felt like there were some things that were just kind of like a little bit over the top, and it was hard for me to like suspend my disbelief. But otherwise, for the most part, it was enjoyable. I wanted to keep reading it, so I still did enjoy it. So 3.5 stars for this one. And then the next book I read was A Court of Silver Flames. This was only the second time I've reread this one as well. And the first time I read this, I kind of had similar feelings like I was talking about with Frost and Starlight, where I was like kind of happy with the way that the first 3 ended, that I didn't want anymore. Well, let me take that back. I want more. I just don't like Nesta. I still don't like Nesta. I understand her more from this book, and I like her a little bit more, but I just don't like her in general. So I enjoyed this book. Again, like, I feel like Nesta is so over the top, and I felt like this book was a little bit too long. This book was more about Nesta working through her stuff than there was about the fantasy elements, I felt, and that's not really how the first 3 were set up. The first 3 had, of course, major romantic elements in them, but I felt like the plot line for the fantasy elements was a lot stronger than in here. And so I was also slightly bored at times. So, but I did like the development of Nesta. I liked the way that she comes around, the work she puts in order to turn herself around. Anyways, I still, recommend it if you are an ACOTAR fan, because it's continuing on the story. I hope that if and when she comes out, Sarah J. Maas comes out with another book in this series, that it's not about Nesta, because I'm over her. But anyway, that was that. And let's see, the next one I read was Indigo Ridge by Devney Perry. I've read the Christmas and Quincy novella for this series, and I've been meaning to jump into the Edens. I've been really wanting to jump into the Edens, so I finally picked up Indigo Ridge, and I really enjoyed this book. Like, I loved this book. I gave it 5 stars. Griffin and Wynn. I think I was hesitant because I was worried I wasn't going to like this one for some reason, but I really, really liked this one. I liked the, the suspense that was plot line that was happening, and I liked the romance. Like, the romance was, it was a sweet romance. There wasn't a whole lot of angst to it. There was like a little bit of like hate to love kind of in the beginning, but that kind of stops pretty quickly, and then it just they just develop their relationship, and so that was really sweet. But I really enjoyed the mystery aspect and the suspense aspect, and I thought that Devney did a really good job of like meshing the two together. So I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 5 stars. And then the last book that I read for the month of April is called The Vine Witch by Luann G. Smith. This one was something I randomly ran across, I think, in Kindle Unlimited, maybe. The world and the magic system were very unique and interesting, so I was very intrigued by that. So this is about a vine witch who had been cursed, and in the beginning of the book, she breaks the curse. Her parents died when she was young, when she was 5, and so she was adopted by this couple who ran this vineyard, and they were also vine witches, and they taught her how to be a vine witch and how to work the land. And she breaks the curse, and she makes her way back to the vineyard, and the woman who raised her is there, and so Elena realizes that the woman had to sell the vineyard because the vineyard wasn't doing well. She sells it to a non-magical person, Jean-Paul. Jean-Paul does not believe in witches, so when Elena comes back, Elena sees that the vineyard has been hexed. It's outed that she's a witch, but he comes around to it, and she starts helping him. But meanwhile, there's also something that's happening. There's like a mystery that's going on where all these dead animals keep showing up. And so the story kind of goes on where they figure out what's going on, and they figured out who curses Elena, and her and Jean-Paul fall in love. So I gave this book 3.5 stars. The romance, I don't know if this was supposed to be a fantasy romance or if it's just mostly fantasy, but my main issue with the book is that I felt like it could have been longer. The mystery elements, I think, could have been fleshed out a little bit more, as well as the romance itself. This is not a closed door romance, but I think there's only one intimate scene, and it's not very descriptive. I felt like the romance could have benefited from small things here and there. Like there wasn't like small touches and small glances and building up the chemistry. I felt like that could have been built up a little bit better. But for overall, I really enjoyed this. I couldn't put it down. I think I read it in one day. I listened to the audiobook and I finished it in one day. And so I really did enjoy it, and it did keep up my interest. But I just felt like by the end of it, I felt like there could have been a little bit more fleshed out. This is the first in a series, and I am interested in reading the other ones in the series. So it's about different witches, so we'll see how that goes. But anyway, so that was my last book. Those were all the books I read in April. So my favorite book of the month was Indigo Ridge. That's the only 5-star book I had this month. And if you guys want to comment below and let me know what your favorite read of April was, I'd like to see what you guys have been reading. And if you want to like and subscribe to support my channel, that would be awesome. And come back to see more content from me. And I hope you have a good day. Bye.